What up, friends? It truly is the end, and today we're going to be reviewing Superorganism's newest album, Worldwide Pop. This is the second album overall by London-based indie pop band Superorganism. The group had an interesting come-up, as they are largely made up of people from different countries who ended up meeting on music forums and sharing instrumentals and vocals online. Their debut self-titled album was a pretty great project that showcased a lot of the best of the quirkier side of indie pop throughout the years. This is especially true in the deadpan vocals and lyrics alongside the jittery and glitchy instrumental style that they had going on there that felt like a Frankenstein's monster of song composition. The band tried to keep up this style on their newest project here, and the album is still definitely fun, but it does feel a bit played out at this point, like a less interesting retread of their debut self-titled. For what it's worth, Black Hole Baby is, I think, a great opener to the project. It has those nonchalant vocals that I'm a pretty big fan of, alongside a huge bass presence and some glittering and shimmering synths and samples. The instrumentals in general are very chaotic, and the contrast between the instrumentals and the vocals is pretty amusing, and they even sampled our favorite melon on the track too. That chorus is just sugary sweet, but in a kind of nihilistic way, as we're kind of expected to all just be fine as the world crumbles and collapses around us. The instrumentals just sound so lively, while the lyrics and vocals sound emotionally drained, which is honestly a vibe. The title track, Worldwide Pop, is also really fun, with a big synth pop influence on it alongside those distorted vocals and a ton of fun samples like phone dialings and a bunch of other beeps and boops throughout the track. I love the ambivalent delivery of the pre-chorus and how it contrasts the jovial delivery of the chorus itself. It almost feels like this song is from the perspective of an alien looking down at the earth and all of its absurdities and then decided to write a catchy song about it. The bouncy beat and fun delivery in general definitely makes this track a highlight. On and On, while not terrible, is one of the weaker moments on the project, I think, with nothing really wacky or chaotic about it to help blend it into the rest of the album. It's not a terrible sound, and it still has a decent flow to it, but it just sounds a bit standard in the grand scheme of things, and the deadpan vocals kind of lack the punch when not paired with the quirky instrumentals that we come to expect. The chorus is also fairly repetitive, and lyrically it also is pretty similar to what Black Hole Baby already established. Teenager, though, is a pretty endearing track about growing up, I think, while also retaining the weird and quirky vibes that the band is known for. It is very much a glitchy pop song, and it uses that to convey the anxieties of being a teenager and growing up too fast. The pre-chorus and chorus especially have a lot of heart to them, I think, and I like all the different vocal styles on this track to kind of keep you on your toes. It is fairly straightforward, all things considered, but I think it uses that straightforwardness to its advantage. The next track, It's Raining, is a great one, and probably the one most reminiscent of their debut album. The beat itself has a fuzzy electro-funk aesthetic to it, and I love how the deadpan vocals contrast how bouncy the beat is. It almost feels like an odd, distorted version of their Prawn song, almost like a parody of it in a way. The hazy and psychedelic nature of the track also kind of conveys how it is both gratifying and also terrible to be stagnant, as it can give you immediate relief, but also a sense of aimlessness afterwards. It might be about feeling directionless during the COVID lockdowns, or how it's just kind of harder to make a living these days in general. Flying is another one that's just kind of there for me, feeling a bit average in how it's put together. It really just sounds like your normal synth pop too, not really doing anything unique to make it stand out. This album, the second half especially, has this weird mishmash of very experimental and noisy pop and also some kind of run-of-the-mill standard pop stuff, and this one unfortunately kind of falls under the latter. Although I will say I do really love that sax that comes in near the end. Solar System isn't bad, although it kind of feels a bit directionless at times. I like how they sampled the Solar System toy and how they have these twinkling and shimmering instrumentals, but I feel like it leads to a payoff that's not as satisfying as it could have been. I do like the addition of the second vocalist, and the vibes are pleasant enough, but I feel like they put a little too much emphasis on it being very noisy and whimsical rather than layered and intricate. I am a fan of Into the Sun though, feeling odd and funky but grounded at the same time. I'm digging the acoustic guitar emphasis on the beat, and the vocals and instrumentals in general feel very casual and playful. The lyrics are absolute nonsense, but in a fun way that I think enhances the vibe of the track as a whole. It's pleasant, airy, and lively, but has a good structure to it, and I think it definitely does convey each of its elements clearly too. This clarity of each element is something that I feel is a bit lacking on a lot of the other songs on this project. Put Down Your Phone is another one that I have mixed feelings on. The lyrics are going into phone bad territory, shit that we've heard so many times that just starts to lose its meaning. The instrumental is okay, nothing amazing, but it does have some decent grooves to it. I also think the lyrical point about how the systems that we have in place right now are unsustainable was also pretty good. I just wish the song focused on that rather than attributing everything bad about our society to phones. Don't Let the Colony Collapse is one of the better songs nearing the end of the project, properly summing up a lot of this album's themes and instrumental styles. The driving synthy beat is fun and has some nice movement to it, and I also like the vocal effect that we got going on here, very much tying into the futuristic themes of the song. It almost makes me think of like a long-lost MGMT song or something, which is pretty cool. That chorus is seriously catchy, and I really like the almost video game-sounding synths on this one. That last chorus especially is super lively and fun, while also being one last plea for everybody to come together and enact change. While there's no track on here that I really hated, I really don't care for Everything Falls Apart, especially in how it ends the album. The previous song was a way better conclusion to what this album presented, and this track is in a weird position where it's a bland instrumental, but also way more jarring compared to what came before it. It just feels kind of sloppily put together, with a bunch of instrumentals falling on top of each other, but not in a structured way. Like, there needs to be some organization in the chaos, I think, and the vocals on this one also really aren't doing anything for me this time around. Lyrically, it's pretty vague and also a bit self-indulgent, coming from a more broad-themed album, while this is a more personal-themed song. Superorganism's new album, despite its flaws, is still a pretty fun experience. There definitely were some hits on the record, especially in the first half. I find that the ones that kept their quirky and funky vibe were definitely the strongest of the bunch. However, some of the earlier synthpop influenced tracks on here were also pretty cool and showcased them combining their sound with that genre in a pretty neat way. The album loses steam around the halfway mark though, I think. I feel like at that point it kind of runs out of surprises and relies on being overly bombastic to retain your attention. In fact, the production can be kind of an issue sometimes, as there's so many instrumental layers that it ends up making the song sound a bit muddy, and for me that's a bit of a problem where I can't hear each element clearly. It makes it sound a bit flat. Their debut album was also cluttered, but you can hear each element distinctly, and I can't really say the same for everything on here. Lyrically, it was also a bit hit or miss, sometimes feeling very fun and odd, while at other times sounding a bit meandering and preachy. It's still a fun project, and I still enjoyed listening to it. It's just maybe a bit of an overzealous project. I am feeling a strong 6 on this newest album by Superorganism. Of course, we still have to talk about album covers on this show, and this one is one that I think is okay, I guess. It kind of feels like we're just messing around with Photoshop filters, to be honest. It also kind of feels like we're just kind of taking the concept of the back cover of Dookie and just putting the earth above it, but we have like the colorful earth alongside the black and white crowd. The way that the color is layered over like the lines protruding out of the earth is especially what makes me think of like a Photoshop filter. I don't know, the concept in general, it doesn't feel as lively or energetic as the sound of the album, I think. So it's okay, I guess, but I don't think it matches the sounds of the record all that well. But of course, those are just my thoughts on this newest album by Superorganism. What did you guys think? Do you think this actually beats their debut, took their wackiness even further? Or are you kind of preferring the more subtle wackiness of their debut? Let me know. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell if you too are a super player, and until the next one, farewell.